Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from a wet and rainy, very muggy day here in Central Florida at the Pinehurst Palace. Of course, I'm in the Xtreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida, watching the Washington Redskins getting manhandled by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I have the young 20-something from Central Florida as well, Professor Pixel, tonight joining me in our continuing coverage of Columbo. Season 2, Episode 2, The Greenhouse Jungle. And Pixel, we had a comment last week about how out of all the episodes we'd seen so far, you can definitely see some changes with what they're doing. Peter Falk's obviously doing a great job fleshing out the character of Columbo. We saw, what's that, a basset hound as his buddy? Nowhere to be seen in this episode. But we see another dog who's a partner of his. And I got to be honest, I really didn't like this episode at all. It's the worst of all of them. So for any shit talking I did last week about how different that episode is, there's only a couple things I liked in this episode. I don't know what the hell's going on. This almost didn't feel like a Columbo episode to me. And again, it's kind of falling into the same pattern as what I mentioned last week due to the weak writing, not necessarily the performers, even though the acting, I thought generally from start to finish from the sub actors in here was obviously the weakest to me too. But it'd be interesting to kind of talk about it because there's a few interesting scenes in here. What's your initial take on this episode?
Yeah, this one's rough.
Yeah.
There are a couple things that I do like in here. Our main villain, Uncle Jarvis, Ray Milland. Yes, Milland. Mm-hmm. He is just, he's really hamming it up for this one.
He's awful.
Yes, but it's the kind of awful that you can't help but enjoy, because every 5 seconds he's doing something to go ahead and belittle the wife of the victim. He just hates her, absolutely. But there's a lot in this episode that's just really not great.
For you 70s fans, I almost immediately mistook Ray Milland, who's obviously has a long and I guess storied career. I don't know if story is the right word for it, but he definitely has been around for a long time here too. I almost got him confused with John Houseman, aka the paper chase guy, aka the guy in John Carpenter's Fog giving the campfire speech to the kids at the beginning, because they all talk like this, except for Ray Milland just continues to shout. And also, if you're a Three's Companies fan, this guy looks like Larry, whoever the damn neighbor was, the pussy hound or whatever too, but he's not even that good. That's how horrible this is here. And Pixel, we usually see pretty much violence early on here. We really don't till almost, through the end of the first act going into the second act, because they're going to team up to con some money out because this dopey dude has a trust he can't break, and he wants to get the money to kind of say it's okay to his cheating wife, who, by the way, is cheating on him with Robert Smith, who plays a bad guy in a lot of stuff. That's Conan's father, ladies and gentlemen, the hunky guy in here on the boat. We'll talk more about him. Why don't you get us going through this episode, sir?
Yes, so our plot begins with a fake kidnapping. We have, I can't even remember, what was it, Tony? Tony's the guy of the name of the main victim.
Who's her husband?
Yes, goes ahead, and he isn't showing up at home that day. It's getting late. His wife goes ahead and calls Uncle Jarvis, who, oh my God, again, every other sentence, he is belittling this woman completely. He hates her, despises her. Oh my gosh. I'm not saying she's great or anything, but it's just uncalled for. Even Tony says, must you do that every time, Uncle Jarvis? But basically, yeah, they fake his kidnapping, so that way they can get cash fast. So Tony is pretty much not showing up. They shoot the window of his car and they push it down a hill, and that's when Columbo pretty much enters the scene, because Tony is still there. He's still cooking, but he's hiding because
this Jag is sweet as hell. I'm telling you that I always like to talk about like the fashion kind of stuff in here, and Ray Milland's dressed, I guess, appropriately, but it's just not really very interesting. But this whole, shooting the bullet in the Jag, which of course will come back to haunt them in the end here a little bit. This is sad to watch them pushing this car over. I don't know. It's my heart's already broken a little bit watching this here, but the whole thing that's interesting here is what happens next during the day when Columbo shows up.
Yes. Columbo shows up. He meets his partner for this episode. I can't even remember the guy's name. What is it?
Freddie.
That's right. Who is going to be the new, I got all the technology guy. And he's not, he actually really kind of admires Columbo. Like, that's what I got from the first impression. Like,
it was pathetic. I mean, he's playing like a puppy that you don't like, that whimpers, not the one that's cute and bites your finger and wants to chew your socks and your shoes and sandals and stuff. He's just not. But he's just in awe of Columbo. And I got to ask you, because the only thing noteworthy in the first 20, 30 minutes to me is they see the Jag and it's rolled over. Thankfully, it didn't explode like most of the time it does. But they're like, hey, the car's down here. This has to be real, and I can't tell if it's sped up. Columbo and him start to like work their way down the side of the hill, and then basically, I think it's a 2-shot take really, but you see it clip only once. He's going at full speed, flying over, and he tumbles, and he still has a cigar in his hand, and I'm like, I think that's really him doing the fall. That was like, holy shit. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tumbled down anything, because where we live, it's swampland, we don't have hills. That shit's dangerous. I was like, was that supposed to be funny? I don't know. I have no idea the history behind it, but it's like, he just gets up and starts looking at the Jag or whatever while the guy's going through a bunch of stuff. My head's still spinning watching this awesome tumble. This is gold star performance by Peter Falk, literally falling down. And if you haven't seen it, or if you guys don't know what I'm talking about watching the episode, it's about the 10-minute mark or so in there. I'm sure there's probably a clip on YouTube. This is phenomenal. It really is. It's it's at the level with Jackie Channel and all that, and all you people that disagree. Hey, we review these movies here on the Xtreme Movie Show. Go check that out. It's phenomenal. I swear he was going to break his neck the way he hits it and everything, but he just gets up. I'm like, good on you, Peter Falk. Holy hell! I wasn't expecting that, but I interrupted you. I apologize, sir.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, no, he tumbles down and fastest way. But they go ahead, they inspect the car, and Columbo is pretty much on the case. So he goes ahead and talks to the wife, seeing about what the ransom note, because he automatically is just figuring, okay, there's no body, things down there. When did you get the ransom? So they demand $300,000. And the plot it's really convoluted from here, because they drive and they
thin to non-existent.
No. Uncle Jarvis heads out and we're going to go ahead and place the money, but he places the money and has it in a way that the guy can go ahead. Tony can go ahead with his head covered in pantyhose, runs down, grabs it, hides away, and hops into the trunk of his uncle's car. Then
this is the worst drop-off of all time.
It's horrible. It really is.
And the pantyhose on the head was always good for a chuckle, because you can make out everything.
Yeah, I know. And they have these new cameras that they keep talking about. It's like, because Columbo does try to show the pictures later that Freddie collected. And it's not great. Like, it's like almost completely clear who that guy is. Even for cameras of that standard. Like, still. Anyway, after they have the money, Jarvis goes ahead and as he says, it's time for the third act. And he pulls out a gun and he kills his nephew.
Yeah.
Yep.
So his nephew wanted the money because he fucked up something with his wife, and he wants her back, even though she knows she cheats, and it's fully admitted out there. And I'm not saying we're supposed to root for the bad guys, but I'm going, I don't get it, because she's good looking enough, sexy enough, the way she's dressed and all that. Headlights are shining, if you know what I'm saying, and all that. Obviously, she's got an attitude, doesn't like the guy. Maybe she's with him for the money. And they allude to some of this stuff in their discussions. And like I have said before in a couple of the episodes, they try to make the women to be kind of like coming out of their shells. Here, this definitely does not happen. But this drop off, this is Scooby-Doo level of bad, where the guy comes down. I mean, the pantyhose, you can see through everything. I'm like, really? I mean, this is I cannot communicate how awful this looks when you're watching it, in my opinion.
How dare
and I have to admit,
Scooby-Doo like that?
The Scooby-Doo's horrible, let's be honest. So, but it's that bad, and the horrible thing about it is, like I say, it's hard for me to get upset with Ray Milland because he's Welsh, I think, when I read his bio, and we all know Welsh people have the best voices on the planet. But when Columbo finally goes to meet him, to your point, kind of getting towards the second act here after Tony gets whacked, we find out that he's got this huge mansion and all that, and he goes into it, and he's a gardener. He's specifically an orchid collector. And I'm looking at those orchids because I have several myself here around the palace here in Pine Hills. They grow very well in Central Florida, but only certain types. Here, they're kind of more of the azalea color quality here in the deep south. They're not bad looking at all. They're certainly not sweating like you would be in a real sunroom. But I was pumping that a rich old dude, a gardener, would be involved in a plot like poisoning. But it's not. And it's like, oh, we're through the first act and then we get the death. Totally different than what we've seen before. We got no dog here. I go, okay, is the dog going to make an appearance? Are we going to see it in the car? But no, this is where we get supposedly the yucky yucks with Columbo when he brings to the guy to kind of soften him up. Hey, I've got some violets here, whatever, for my wife, and they look pretty sad. And the guy just shits on Columbo, and Columbo, of course, doesn't get bothered by it. And I thought, these two don't have any chemistry at all on screen, which is one of the main reasons we like watching Columbo. We like seeing him in this almost like a one-upsmanship, but in a different way verbally when confronting who the killer's going to be, whether he thinks he knows it or not, and seeing that develop. And here he's just very, gosh, aw, shucks kind of whatever while going through stuff. And now his performance is fine. I have no problem with the Columbo character, but it's like, at least you would get a little bit more of a nuanced performance for whoever the bad guy was, where you'd see his irritation escalate. Because this is probably, I think, Milland's best scene, and with Falk, one of the better ones in here, where they walk into Ray Milland's big man cave, and Peter Falk's gushing over the pool table, and he hits a couple shots and seeing him talking. I like that kind of cinematography, the way they're talking about stuff, because he shows them the pictures, right? And he's like, yeah, these aren't very clear and all that. And it's a nice little bit of acting between these two. I'm like, okay, this episode's maybe it's just a little different. It's getting a little bit better here. But unfortunately to me, this is pretty much the highlight, because we get, was it Freddie, his buddy, and all that. They find out that he has a little bit of a side piece, this blonde who's got a very nice body, that Columbo goes to talk to. And again, Columbo does a very good job of talking to the softer, with the softer side of the softer sex, whatever you want to call it, getting information about it. And that's always interesting to watch too, because this woman's as beautiful or more beautiful, you could argue, than his wife. Certainly her figure is more prominently displayed, even though she's got what looks to be a horrendous blonde wig. And it's like, if I understood the conversation correctly, they did not have relations, but they even point to where she's got a photo of the guy where he autographed it for her. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
you got a side piece that you talk to? What am I getting wrong here?
Here's the thing. She says this to the wife. She says this to Columbo. But then when she goes, after speaking to Columbo, oh no, I just love to talk to him. And she goes over to the uncle to let him know about the detective.
Yeah.
And she says, of course, I didn't tell him everything.
Yeah.
And so that immediately undoes everything that she's been saying in this entire episode. Because you know what? They absolutely were banging. So.
Yeah. No, I'm with you at the scene, though. Whether you believed it or not at the time, the way it's presented, you're like, the shock to me, which throws me off, is why the hell would you give yourself a photo with an autograph on it, a headshot, to your mistress? Whether you're having relations or not, you're just being emotionally available, not physically. I mean, of course, in case it's both. And it's like, okay, and Columbo confronts the wife, at the boat with, Robert Smith, who should have been in here a hell of a lot more. You've seen him in Clint Eastwood stuff. Guy's been around forever. Like I say, he's Conan's father. Very good looking, hunky guy. I thought he would be more prominent here. When I popped when I saw him, and I thought, okay, gardener, orchids, poison. I'm going to get some like a pre-Moonraker kind of thing going on here with orchids. And I get none of it. I basically get two people that cheat on each other. They don't give a rat's ass, and I still don't know why he wanted to get money to kind of save his relationship. It makes no sense at all to me, the plot, and I really get lost on it because the big thing here with Ray Milland's character as a gardener is he doesn't show any depth at all. He has a nice set of driving gloves that he gets the gun out. One of the most preposterous scenes happens pretty much next after he finds out everything. He goes to make it look like the murder is going to be planted on the wife. He literally sneaks into her house while she's sleeping and goes into her shoe cave, whatever you want to call it, or whatever like that. And that's a decent amount of shoes for a woman that's in a position that she's in. It's not. I've seen worse. And somehow he manages to plant everything while she's just restlessly moving around and sleeping, and leaves. And I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? And then he calls the Freddy dude over, whatever, with the gun and all that to try to make it look like a setup. And I'm like, this episode has done nothing. And we're getting ready to pretty much clean it up here in like the last 10, 15 minutes or whatever. And while I don't hate Columbo's, I don't know what to call him, an assistant. He's well dressed. He's got a nice gray. He's got actually a 3-pattern outfit here between the jacket, the shirt, and the tie. And that's extremely difficult to pull off. But if you notice the subtlety of the pattern on the shirt, it matches well with the fact that he's got the bigger pattern on his jacket and actually just the stripes on the tie. Very difficult to do. So he's dressed very well. Got a half-inch bit on the top of his collar showing from his shirt. So the 70s fashion wasn't horrible. But then we get him meeting with Columbo at a diner, which I don't think was the same diner we saw in season 1. Maybe I'm wrong. This looks like one of those like pop-up kind of diners or something, where I think he's trying to get chili, and he lets the guy basically go do what he's going to do. And then we get what I think is one of the this is like contact lens level reveal here at the end. I was like, it's got to get better, but it doesn't. Take us through this last little bit here and tell me what you think.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to ask, did you enjoy the suitcase within a suitcase within a suitcase within a suitcase?
The Russian doll reveal of that? No.
I know.
I didn't hate it, but no.
So the end is basically they go ahead. He set everything up. Freddy is going through all of this and revealing it, and
he's got the metal detector.
Basically not there to see. Yeah, he has a metal detector in the mansion, and he's going around, and apparently, and I can't remember what is it exactly that he shot a spare shot and it was in the ground.
It was in the dirt in the greenhouse. So there was a third slug.
That
could be matched up with ballistics.
It's idiotic. Like,
yeah,
like
laughably
where does
bad.
the third shot come in? It's just there. It's just a thing that's there. Just like this entire episode. I will say I did enjoy Columbo a little more in this one compared to the last one because Columbo's always great, but this one he's almost a little grumpier, if that makes sense. If you can see what I'm seeing.
Well, here's the thing with the ending. Freddy, gets everybody over there, and he basically is going to do the big reveal, and of course it's wrong. So he ends up showing up at the gardener's place with Columbo because Columbo invited the wife over, and basically explains how hey, if it wasn't for you, Freddy, I wouldn't have thought of this. They put the thought in my head. Congrats on you, because he found the bullet with using some technology. We don't see him do it; he just kind of has it, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is an insult. This again, I'm going back to Roddy McDowall being kind of like the Meg level, where you could call it a movie, but it's not really a good one. But at least Roddy sold it, and made us believe that he was on the ground struggling with a bomb, going up the lift there in the mountains, right? And we thought that was kind of a weak episode, or at least that, because he was annoying. But I'm going, and Milland just kind of like gives up, and it's like, at least in the acting one last week, he's like, congratulations, you're a genius, sort of thing. At least there's some juice behind the conductor. Here I'm like, this is the worst villain bad guy I think of all of them. And I just, when you say with Columbo about being a little grumpy, I think what it is we're used to seeing him act alone. We're seeing him used to, like I say, have the kind of one-on-ones where it's not a pissing contest so much as he's coming at you intellectually and poking and prodding you. And we're seeing the deliciousness of whoever's trying to outwit him do it a few times and then go through those stages, right? Of, oh, I got up my game. This guy's actually asking a good question. I have to do it. And it's like, here we don't get a lot of them together. And we don't get a lot of him and kind of Freddy going off each other. When we do, it's kind of more lighthearted. So it's not a tone that we're used to seeing at this point in the Columbo episodes.
Yeah.
So the few scenes we see him pensive or lost in thought, he does kind of look a little grumpy. I wouldn't argue with you on that. But I think another part of it is there's nobody, even though he's a bad guy we're rooting for or having some pleasure or fun with. These are the dullest characters. They're the thinnest. There's not even a cool real scene other than him tumbling down that really stands out as being noteworthy to me. So you take away any positive stuff in there, even if it's an outfit or a song or a certain scene or a kooky way that you filmed the death, like we talked about, like with sunglasses with the carnation or the glasses from, was it Robert Culp in one of the earlier episodes in season 1? Not even something like that that's kind of cool. You're left with, yeah, this isn't fun. So I think we automatically look at him as being more grumpy, because I thought his acting was fine, but I go, okay, you gave us a dog, you made a big deal out of it. Where the hell's the damn dog? You give him a partner. Is the guy going to be a partner now? Is he only going to show up for a few episodes? Hell if I know, because it wasn't like they did stuff together. For the most part, he told him what to do, and Freddie did it off screen. And that's not a knock on Freddie or the actor. It's like, what the fuck are you trying to do? I out of all the episodes, this one's that we reviewed, this is the worst one to me.
It's undeniably the worst episode. Like last week, I know we disagreed about a lot of that episode, but this one, yeah, we're on the same page. This one sucked. It really sucked. I saw it twice. It sucked both times.
I put it on and fell asleep. I put it on again, fell asleep, and I put it on the third time and forced myself to watch it and went, I fell asleep at all the right times because nothing goes on. At least in the last episode, you've got this absurd killing where the conductor comes out dressed like a pedo in the jacket and the big visors, like Inspector Gadget or whatever, and he's running around in his raincoat, broad daylight, stealing his car, going over, and it's just so preposterous. But at least they said, yeah, we'll do this and we'll add this. Here they do nothing. And nothing happens with the flowers. What's the point in doing it? Why did he need the money? The dude had a sick crib. It's not like he was like, yeah, I did a lot of options for my stock to do this, and the batch, got rained out because of some, Bolivian tribesmen came over and they had something stupid that would explain why he needed the money. Nothing. And they're both the husband and wife are cheating on each other. Okay, fine. And we're so used to getting a death early on. The fact that they did a lot later on, that wasn't a ha. That was a, why the hell did you wait so damn long? I don't know. It didn't work for me, and it sounds like it didn't work for you.
No. This one is a stinker.
Yeah, it's relatively speaking, Falk, I think, is fine in it. You're introducing things here in the second season that, while the seasons aren't the full 20 to 25 episodes we would see on typical TV, it's one of those things where I was expecting a bit higher level quality. From what little I've read so far, it seems like Falk did not want to have a partner at all, and maybe not even a dog, and I get it. They wanted to keep it more like season 1, and obviously that did not happen. That would make sense to me probably as we go through several more seasons of Columbo to explain what's going on with it. So it's one of those things where, like with The Prisoner, with Patrick McGowan, some saying he's the actual agent and danger man from the 60s over there, that out of the 13 episodes reviewed, 6 or 7 of them were filler because they said, hey, we won't do it unless you give us 13 episodes for a season. Patrick McGowan, okay, I wrote it, and that's why half of them we thought were kind of garbage, because they weren't really Prisoner episodes. They were episodes that had him in it, and this just feels like an episode that has Columbo in it. It feels like filler, and it's not ruining my appreciation of the show, because I still think it's fairly entertaining, and there's lots of things I like to look for while watching it. I just,
Yeah.
feel like the second season so far has been drastically different than the first. Not necessarily in a bad way. We still got 6 or 7 more episodes, I think, to cover before we can make that judgment. I'm sure at that point we'll review season 2 and compare it to season 1. Any other final thoughts here on episode 2, season 2 of Columbo?
No, there's no more. There's no one more thing that's over. We're done.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Columbo season 2, episode 2. Get ready for us to go live here at 7 o'clock Eastern. We'll review Anaconda, where we had over 1,100 votes on our poll of what movie to do it. This obviously has got a lot of juice. Be looking forward to talking about that because Columbo could use a bit of John Voight or J-Lo walking around with their nipples engaged, if you know what I'm saying. And we kind of had that in this episode. Columbo, we'll see if they keep treating the women slutty rather than sexily in the next episode, because I'm really curious to see how that goes. Guys, next week we'll see you for episode 3. For everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, I'm your host, Rob, Professor Pixel. Good night now.
This was not a Dan Curtis production.